Hello, and welcome to the Leesa Story Hour, inspired by Grandpa's story time. Tonight's story is called The Lantern That Learned Your Name. Get comfortable and let your breath slow a little. In a quiet village nestled between soft hills and sleeping trees, there was a small lantern shop that only opened when the sky turned the color of deep blue ink. By day, the shop looked ordinary enough. Its windows were round and dusty. Its door was painted a faded shade of green. A climbing vine wrapped itself around the stone chimney. People passed by all the time without giving it much thought. But when evening arrived, and the first stars appeared overhead, something wonderful happened. The lanterns inside began to wake up. Not all at once, one by one. A golden lantern hanging near the ceiling would glow softly, then a silver lantern resting on a shelf, then a tiny copper lantern no larger than an apple. Soon the whole shop shimmered with warm light. The glow spilled across the wooden floorboards and danced gently along the walls, and at the center of it all worked the old lantern maker named Elias. Elias had kind eyes, steady hands, and a beard as white as fresh snowfall. Every evening he sat at his workbench beneath a pool of golden light. There, surrounded by tools, tiny brushes, and shelves of lantern glass, he cared for each lantern that came through his door. Because Elias did not make ordinary lanterns. He made lanterns for things people had lost. Not objects, not keys, not coins, not hats, forgotten on rainy days. He made lanterns for lost feelings. A lantern for courage that had wandered away. A lantern for comfort that had gone missing after a difficult week. A lantern for hope that had grown sleepy and needed a place to rest. No one knew exactly how Elias did it. Even the villagers weren't entirely sure. But somehow, whenever someone left his shop carrying one of his lanterns, they always seemed a little lighter than before. A little warmer, a little brighter. One evening, while Elias polished a lantern made of blue glass, an elderly baker stepped through the door. She carried a lantern whose light had grown very dim. "Good evening," said Elias. The baker smiled. "I think my lantern needs a little help." Elias examined it carefully, then he nodded. "Ah," he said softly, "this lantern has been working very hard." The baker laughed. "I suppose I have, too." Elias set the lantern beside his workbench. Then he began telling stories. Stories about cold winter mornings when the baker woke before sunrise to make bread. Stories about extra pastries she quietly gave away. Stories about the comforting smell that drifted through her bakery each morning and made people smile before they even reached the door. As the stories filled the room, the lantern slowly brightened. Not quickly, not suddenly, but steadily, like dawn arriving. The baker's eyes sparkled when she saw it. "Thank you, Elias." Elias simply smiled. The lantern remembered. A little later, after the baker had gone home, another visitor arrived. This time it was the village gardener. She carried a lantern made of green glass. Its glow was faint as a firefly. Elias listened as she spoke about planting seeds, about waiting, about how long it sometimes took for beautiful things to grow. Then he told stories. Stories of flowers she had planted years ago that still bloomed every spring. Stories of children who learned to love gardens because she had taught them. Stories of birds who returned each season because her gardens welcomed them. The lantern brightened. The gardener smiled. And once again, the lantern remembered. Night after night, lanterns arrived, And night after night, Elias helped them remember, for that was the secret of every lantern. They weren't powered by oil, or candles, or electricity. They glowed with remembering. The more they remembered the goodness, kindness, courage, and wonder they belonged to, the brighter they shone. Then one evening, as moonlight settled softly across the village rooftops, a child arrived carrying a small lantern. It flickered weakly, blinking on and off, as though it couldn't quite decide whether to shine. The child stepped quietly inside. "This one won't stay lit," they said. Elias accepted the lantern and held it gently in his hands. The glow wavered, then nearly disappeared. For a moment, Elias studied it without speaking. At last, he nodded. "Ah." "What is it?" asked the child. Elias smiled warmly. "This lantern hasn't learned your name yet." The child blinked. "Lanterns learn names? The best ones do." He motioned toward a cozy chair beside the workbench. "Come, sit." The child settled into the chair while Elias placed the lantern between them. Outside, the wind rustled softly through the trees. Inside, the shop glowed with golden light. The scent of cedar wood and warm tea drifted through the air. Everything felt calm. Everything felt safe. Elias looked at the lantern. Then he began to speak. Not spells, not commands, not magic words. Stories. He told a story about a day when the child shared an umbrella with a friend during a rainstorm. The lantern flickered brighter. He told a story about a time the child tried something difficult even though they felt nervous. The lantern glowed a little warmer. He told a story about laughter shared during an ordinary afternoon. A story about helping someone who needed a hand. A story about being patient. A story about being curious. A story about trying again. With each memory, the lantern listened. The glow grew steadier, brighter, warmer. The child watched in wonder. "I'd forgotten some of those." Elias nodded. "Most people do." The lantern shone brighter still. Its light was no longer flickering. Now it glowed like honey-colored sunlight trapped inside glass. The child stared into its warm glow, and somehow it felt familiar, like hearing a favorite song, like returning home after a long journey, like being wrapped in a blanket on a cold evening. "Is it fixed now?" the child asked. Elias chuckled softly. "It was never broken." The child looked puzzled. "It wasn't?" "No." Elias handed the lantern back. It simply needed to remember who it belonged to. The child held the lantern carefully. The light remained steady, warm, comforting, certain, as if it recognized them now, as if it had finally learned their name. The child thanked Elias and stepped outside. Above, the stars glittered quietly. Below, the lantern cast a golden circle of light upon the path, and all the way home it glowed beside them, steady as a heartbeat, warm as kindness, bright as remembering. And so tonight, if you listen closely in the quiet moments before sleep, you might notice something warm inside you too. Something steady, something that has been with you all along, something that knows your name. Good night.